When you have your disc flat, you'll see a dull line all the way around, and that'll go out to a fairly sharp edge. So now that that's perfect, I'll show you how to solder it. Flux the top of your bell and your cap, and take a piece of hard solder and either run it through your rolling mill or hammer it flat. Cut pieces, place them on the top edge of the bell with your flux brush. Be fairly generous because we don't want any gaps. All the way around. Dry this out slowly with your torch just by passing the torch off and on really quickly. Take your time because we don't want to bounce any of these solder bits off. We just want to dry out the flux. Okay, once the flux is dry, let it cool so that you can put the cap on top. The cap is just sitting on top and it's level, and you shouldn't have to do anything other than circle between the bell and the top. Don't try to go all the way around, just circle on one side. When the solder flows, when you see the solder flow, then you can shift your torch around to the rest of it. The majority of the heat will be on the bell. Yep, so there it flowed, and I'm just shifting my torch to make sure that the solder flows all the way around. Quench it, pickle it, tidy it up. Sandpaper. So once you've taken your bell out of the pickle and sanded it back, when I use 400 grade paper on a sanding stick, and you shouldn't see a seam anywhere. You shouldn't see a seam where you soldered this together, and you shouldn't see a seam around the top. Now at this point, this could just as easily be a thimble, and this is a way to make thimbles, except I just put little dimples in the top to catch the needle. But this is going to be a bell, so we're going to drill our spot on top now with a 1.2 millimeter drill bit, because I'm using 1.2 wire for the clapper. 75 mil long, cut it two pieces 35 mil long. File the end flat. Use your flat round pliers and a small loop in the end, and really as small as possible, as long as the 1.2 wire goes through there. That's the size we want. Now do the same thing on your other piece of wire and put these two together so you'll have a loop in a loop. Hard solder. It wants to look like this, and I just hang it on my third hand and solder these. Don't solder them together. We want it to do this when we're done. This is what it should look like. Now I've centered the loop on the wire just by grabbing it with my parallel jaw pliers and pushing the loop where it needs to be. Now at this point we're going to drill the hole in the bell and put the wire through. But before you do that, the wire that's going to go through, where you cut it with your side cutters, just file a little taper on that, because when you cut things with side cutters, it actually squeezes it into an oval. So initially it won't fit the hole that you've drilled. If your hole is exactly 1.2 and you don't put a little taper on this, you think it's the wrong size, but it's just oval. Now you don't have to pre-drill this. You can just go straight through with the 1.2 bit, because when you put your punch mark on there, you thinned it out. Now thread your wire through. And we're going to melt a ball on the end of this. So leave about it looks about like 5 mil sticking out of the end, and take that back out, cut that off to that length. Now we're going to hold this in our third hand and melt a ball on the end. I've dipped the end in flux. I've got the same neutral flame that we always use, coming at a slight angle from the bottom. And when you get a nice little ball on the end, stop. If you try to make it too big, it'll drop off. Quench that. So you can see that my little clapper ball is right on the bottom now. Makes an appealing noise. Now we need to cut the length of wire for whatever size loop we want. I like a 4mm loop because it's a good average size for a chain or a neck cord. And we know that if we multiply the diameter, 4 mil, times 3.14, it will give us the length, the circumference of the circle, so we can just cut our wire that long. You can just do it quickly, 12 mil roughly. Compensate for the wire, 13.5. So I'm going to cut that, file the end flat, form it into a loop, and solder it. Just a little bit of flux on your two spots where you're going to solder. Place your solder with your flex brush. Now you can use either easy or hard solder for this. If you're nervous about soldering your clapper inside together, use easy up here. But it should, even if you use hard solder, it should just solder up here. Now I'm soldering the loop closed and I'm soldering the wire to the bell at the same time. Our same old neutral flame. Just warm it up until the flux dries out. And you can push these back where you want them once the flux is dry. Most of the heat will be on the bell. And just circle, and the solder will flow. Now, pickle it, quench it, and pickle it, and have a look at it. There it is, fresh out of the pickle, ready to be polished. I would put it in the tumbler so that you don't erase any of your pattern. You can polish it on the Tripoli, but it'll smooth off some of your pattern. So tumble it and you're done. Christmas ornament, pendant, mother-in-law bell, done. This is what we're making. A little silver bell.